2.2 million incarcerated people.
Let me explain. Mass incarceration has targeted Black and brown communities through biased policies, unfair sentencing laws, and a racist system of control. The United States has moved from slavery to Jim Crow and then to the system we have today. We are able to see a pattern of control. It's control, but simply in different forms. In simple words, I'm going to explain how mass incarceration worked, how it is still a problem today, and why it hits Black and brown groups the most. This brings us to the topic question: how does mass incarceration act as a modern racial control, and what are the consequences and effects to the Black and brown community? In The New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander, she tells us that even after the civil rights movement, the system of racial control has not disappeared. She says that it simply changed its way of working. She's basically saying that the racism never disappeared, it just got a new name, called criminal. In chapter 5, she writes, mass incarceration functions similarly. It achieves racial segregation by segregating prisoners, the majority of whom are Black and brown, from mainstream society. So instead of mainstream segregation, she says that whole groups of people are physically removed from home. She also adds, a facially race-neutral system of laws has operated to create a racial caste system. Basically, people of criminal or even small records lose basic rights such as housing, employment, and voting rights. This passage shows that how often the label of criminal functions as a system of Jim Crow, preventing people from getting jobs, housing, and voting rights. Besides this example of mass incarceration, the documentary 13th, directed by Ava DuVernay, also connects to this idea of mass incarceration. The documentary connected the idea to the 13th Amendment, highlighting the amendment that ended slavery, except as a punishment for crime. Politicians used the loophole within the 13th Amendment from the ideas of war on drugs to lock up substantial large numbers of Black and brown people. For us to get an idea on how large this number was, I've provided statistics from Wildeman, Wang, and Symes. Wildeman and Wang writes that on any given day, the USA incarcerates more than its citizens at a higher level more than any other country. There were also a time scope in the 13th documentary showing the increase of incarceration from 300,000 people in 1970 all the way up to 1.1 million in 1990, and now more than 2.2 million people. They also provided a graph on how crazy the difference was compared to other countries. Symes also finds out that neighborhoods containing just 15% of the state's population accounts for over half of all prison admissions. This fact is basically showing that the poor, mostly brown and Black neighborhoods are affected the most. And it's not a neutral system, but rather a system that is concentrated in specific communities. A specific example of this is the George Zimmerman and Trayvon Martin case. Martin was a 17-year-old Black teenager walking home unarmed. Zimmerman, who was in the neighborhood, reported Martin for being suspicious, which as a result, despite numerous attempts from emergency personnel telling Zimmerman to not pursue the issue, Zimmerman shot Martin as a result of a confronted altercation. There was public outrage as Zimmerman was not charged with murder due to Florida's Stand Your Ground law, which ultimately used that law to argue that he felt fear and believed he was in danger. But in this case, it was racially biased. This case connects back to the main idea, as racial bias doesn't just apply to mass incarceration, but also how society defines danger, and those who are punished as a result of this unjust bias. Trayvon Martin's case also showed how this racial bias isn't just related to incarceration and criminals, but also reveals how assumptions start and lead to deeper aspects. The Constitution was built on fairness, justice, and equality, but despite this, there has been racial bias, and that still affects us to this day.